Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
President Buhari regrets accidental Air Force bombing in Borno State, condoles families of victims.
Bring Back Our Girls Group commends federal government efforts to rescue Nigerians in Boko Haram captivity.
Women charged to take advantage of government social intervention programs to reduce poverty.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we discuss how to add more value to the country's agricultural produce.
Well, this is something that has been said so many times, but I think it needs some kind of resonance to keep driving home the significance of the issue for discussion on the program today. It is that in the 1960s, the agricultural sector made the biggest contribution to Nigeria's production, employment, as well as earnings.
Well, Nigeria fought a 30-month-long civil war without having to borrow money from anywhere else around the world now. But by the 1970s, following the spike in oil prices after the Arab-Israeli War in 1973, agriculture began to stagnate and gradually was abandoned. And of course, this followed the fact that there was increased reliance on crude oil as a high revenue earner for the country. Unfortunately, this has lingered now for several decades.
That's the picture, Kingsley. Well, from providing its domestic food needs and being an exporter of unprocessed agricultural produce, Nigeria became a food importer and is today one of the biggest food importers globally. It is the biggest importer of wheat as well as rice and amongst the largest importers of dairy products and fish, among other items that we import.
Well, to put sums to these products that Blessing has just indicated, available UN records indicate that Nigeria spends about $4 billion annually on wheat imports, another $2 billion spent on rice, and more than $600 million on the importation of dairy products, as well as over $300 million on fish. Now, the UN puts the country's annual food import bill, including other items, apart from those we just listed now, at some $10 billion annually. This is about 1/3 of Nigeria's annual budget.
Well, if you thought that was of a concern, available records also showed clearly that Nigeria imports what it can conveniently produce because it has good climate and over 71% of its land is cultivable. But less than half of it is not being put to use. This is what is being put to use. Well, a huge chunk of it is unused, and irrigation, which would have increased agricultural production, is neglected. In fact, it is put at a mere 1%.
In addition to what you just said, Blessing, United Nations, that's the specific agencies, recognize that Nigeria has comparative advantage in relation to at least 13 agricultural produce. These include rice, groundnut, cocoa, sorghum, cassava, cotton, maize, oil palm, soya beans, tomatoes, onions, fish, as well as livestock. Now, let's take palm oil as an instance. Now, the seedlings Of course, we're taken from this country by Malaysia, and with value addition, Malaysia made over $20 billion from palm oil alone, and this was in 2008. That's almost 10 years ago. Now, let's also take a look at livestock. Just by improving practices in the industry by just like 30%, the Zimbabwean farmers who are doing pretty well, according to reports in Kwara State, the income of some 12 million persons in the business could exceed $285 million in a year. All that is to be done is value addition to the agro-commodities.
Now, if Nigeria is globally acknowledged to have advantage in 13 agricultural products, and the country could just engage in value addition, can you imagine what she could become? Will the country's economy be in the shape it is today? Would unemployment be such a huge problem for the country? What would have been the standard of living of Nigerians like? Well, this is some of the poses we'll seek answers to on Good Morning Nigeria today. My name is Blessing Abu, welcoming you to today's edition of the program. And this is coming to you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
I'm Kingsley Osadora. Join my colleague Blessing and also welcoming you to this program, in the course of which we shall bring you our regular companion segments, including newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment. In the meantime, we are having my colleague here, Blessing Abu, deliver the news to you this morning. Hi, Blessing.
Kingsley. Now to the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has received with deep sadness and regret the accidental bombing of a civilian community in Rani, Borno State by the Nigerian Air Force, engaged in the final phase of mopping up of insurgents in the northeast. The president condoles with families of the dead and wished the wounded divine succor, leading to full recovery, and sympathizes with the Borno State government. In a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, the president pledges the federal government's help for the state government in attending to this regrettable operational mistake, and pleads for calm, even as he prays to God to grant repose to the souls of the dead. Meanwhile, the federal government has been given a pat on the back for the effort it has put in so far to rescue the Chibok schoolgirls and all other Nigerians in Boko Haram captivity. This was the submission of the convener of the Bring Back Our Girls group, Obi Ezekwesili, who led the group's delegation to be part of the tour of the Northeast to assess the ongoing military operation in the area.
The information we have has empowered and enriched our question, our demand for government to be able to make a decision. I must thank the BBAG girls for the issue of transparency. And yes, we are very happy with you that if you are conducting this kind of operation, if you do it in a transparent manner, we are able to carry along the citizens. And that's one of the reasons why we say thank you and invite you to see that we have nothing to hide in the conduct of this war.
All of us to realize that we have a stake in security, and every Nigerian has a role to play. And that is why I think the communities, people need to be vigilant.
The Presidential Committee on Northeast Initiative has risen from its extraordinary meeting for 2017 with a resolve to redouble efforts in the coordination of all intervention programs for the region. Vice Chairman of the committee, Tijani Tumsa, said this while briefing the media after the meeting.
These subcommittees have gone out to the affected region to interface with stakeholders and also have a first-hand view of what is happening in the Northeast for appropriate intervention.
In the meantime, the Yobe State government has provided emergency relief to hundreds of internally displaced persons who returned to their liberated communities but lost their crops to a fire, which destroyed their farmlands. 18 million naira approved for the insurgency victims by Governor Ibrahim Gejam was disbursed by the State Emergency Relief Agency to enable them survive the first season since their return home.
Based on that we say, okay, there's a need that we targeted those that are very much vulnerable, those that purely depend on the product of that year to sustain themselves within before the next farming season.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is in Davos, Switzerland for this year's World Economic Forum. In the Nigerian delegation are ministers and special advisors, including the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Oke Enelama, Minister for Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Audu-Ogbe, and the Minister for Water Resources, Alhaji Suleiman Adamu. The special advisor on economic matters to the President, Adeyemi Dikpeolu, is also on the delegation. The yearly forum, which draws together government and business leaders around the world to discuss economic issues and review development, is normally composed of panel discussions, country and continent-specific themes, and other subjects. The Vice President also held a press briefing and an interview session on terrorism. It disclosed that the Buhari administration's new economic recovery and growth plan aims to reduce the gap that exist in the foreign exchange markets as much as possible. Vice President Osinbajo, while at the annual forum, will also be discussing the theme, Building Africa, with Rwanda President Paul Kagame and the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Mr. Haile Mariam Desalegn. Among others, the Vice President will also hold other bilateral and business meetings with some of the global companies attending the forum. Chairman Senate Joint Committee on the Federal Capital Territory, Public Procurement, Ethics and Privileges and Public Petitions, Dino Melaye, has emphasized that Nigeria should ensure sustainability of government programs, projects and policies. This was during an investigative hearing on what is regarded as abandoning of a project worth 8 billion naira at the Code of Conduct Bureau headquarters in Abuja.
Save our resources, but will also enable government to ensure optimum use of scarce resources.
4 budgetary releases for the project. In fact, it took the CCB more than 3.5 years to complete payment of 15% of mobilization fees to the contractor.
We didn't envisage we were going to hit an aquifer that had water. The shop drawings, we didn't get them on time.
The House of Representatives has passed at second reading a bill for an act to amend the Labour Act of 2004, which seeks to provide for compulsory registration of all foreign employers of labour in Nigeria. The bill also seeks to review fines and punishment stipulated in the act.
And those who come to Nigeria to provide employment comply with the labor laws of Nigeria.
If we have statistics of the employment that we have, we should also know the ones that are supposed to be for foreigners, the ones that are supposed to be for Nigerians.
On how Nigerians and their position in labor markets have been taken over by foreigners. Under the existing law, there are even ridiculous amounts as low as even 50 naira fines.
Minister of Women Affairs Aisha Jumain Al-Hassan has asked women in the Kogi State to key into the federal government's social intervention program to reduce the level of poverty in the land. The minister was speaking in Lokaja at a town hall meeting with Kogi State women.
I give guarantee to Mr. President that I guarantee that Nigerian women will not fail you, Mr. The government of Kogi State, under the able leadership of Alhaji Yahya Bello, is committed to the empowerment of women.
That's a news beat on Good Morning Nigeria for today. I'll be back with Kingsley to continue Good Morning Nigeria after this break.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. 1. Hide. Report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-325025 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
As I recharge so, I know say I must win the Enter Red Hot promo. Hey, by the time the 10 million naira enter my hand, I go just give my landlord quick notice. Yes, and if him prove stubbornness, I go just buy a house, buy a family, join self. Enter Red Hot promo. I sure pass.
Promo runs till end of January 2017. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The attention of the management of the NTA Television College, Jos, has been drawn to some illegal websites currently operated in the name of the college by some unscrupulous individuals to defraud applicants. In view of this, the college authority wishes to inform the public that any person or group asking applicants to make financial transactions should be considered as online scammers and fraudsters. All admission forms can only be purchased at the college or any NTA station across the nation. Also, members of the public are to kindly contact the college before making any payments on 0803-721-6725 or 0803-314-6151. NTA Television College Jos does not operate any online or individual accounts. Be warned that the college will not be held accountable for any online payments. Announcer, Management.
Make a come see now how they go make me president of our club association. In fact, we don't even need to do election sef. Now for just dash me the president when they come see as my level don't change. In fact, I don't get my presidential waka. President.
Promo runs till end of January 2017. Airtel, the smartphone network.
All right, you're welcome back. Now it's time for us to take a look at business stories. And the federal government is set to recapitalize the Bank of Agriculture, just as Nigeria's cashew farmers plan to boost output with an eye on exports. In addition to all of these stories, we have a story indicating that the UK's rate of inflation has climbed to 1.6%. Our correspondent Joy Uzo has details of the stories.
The federal government has inaugurated the National Council on Privatization Steering Committee on the restructuring and recapitalization of the Bank of Industry and the project delivery team to revitalize the operations of the Bank of Agriculture. Inaugurating the steering committee and project delivery team on behalf of the Vice President, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Chief Audu Ogbe, says the approach is to make the Bank of Agriculture more responsive to its mandate of serving as a veritable platform for providing loans to farmers, cooperatives, and agro-allied industries.
The BOA has faced a myriad of challenges, which include poor funding, poor stakeholder buy-in, particularly FGN agencies, and erosion of stakeholder funds, especially with bad debts. People have borrowed money from this bank in the past, and many have either failed or refused to pay. We do appreciate the difficulties that have faced farmers in the past, some of which we have taken steps at the level of the ministry and the central bank to correct. Among these are low yields on farms and very poor knowledge of agriculture, the way it should be practiced today.
Members of the steering committee include Ministers of Finance, Budget and National Planning, as well as Industry, Trade and Investment, Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Others are Director General Bureau of Public Enterprise, Special Advisor to the President on Economic Matters, and General Manager Finance and Accounts. Nigerian cashew producers are working on a 4-year plan to cultivate more land and boost exports more than threefold to 500,000 metric tons a year to feed a growing export market. With about 160,000 hectares of land producing about 150,000 tons a year, farmers are seeking to cultivate additional 340,000 hectares to achieve industry targets. President, National Cashew Association of Nigeria, Tola Fashiru, in an interview with newsmen, says the increase in cultivation should raise annual export income from the product to at least $650 million from the $253 million earned in 2015. Nigeria exports more than 80% of its cashew output, mostly as raw kernels, with about 60% of last year's shipments going to Vietnam, according to the Cashew Association. Fashiru says virtually all the states in the country have the potential to grow cashew, adding that their sites are even beyond the 2020 target as they seek to make cashew one of the country's biggest exports. And on the foreign scene, Theresa May says the United Kingdom may not remain within the European single market, as staying in it would mean not exiting the EU at all. However, the Prime Minister promised to push for what she described as the biggest possible access to the single market following Brexit. In a long-awaited speech, Theresa May announced that Parliament would get a vote on the final deal agreed between the UK and the European Union. The Prime Minister also promised an end to the UK's vast contributions to the EU. Meanwhile, UK's inflation rate jumps to 1.6% from 1.2% recorded in November. According to the Office of National Statistics, ONS, rising airfares and food prices helped to push up the inflation to its highest since July 2014. And finally, on business news, here is a graphic summary of recent trading figures on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy Uzo, from the business news. It's time now to take a look at some of those major headlines in today's newspapers.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atobi, is right here with us for today's edition of the review segment on Good Morning Nigeria. Bayo, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Blessing. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Well, as to be expected, we have stories on the front pages of the papers we have with us this morning, focusing on the sad incident that occurred yesterday in Borno. But let's begin our review this morning with The Guardian. There's the lead story for The Guardian. It says fighter jet kills civilians in Borno anti-terror raid. And then you have three riders to that headline. Red Cross officials, doctors and soldiers among casualties. And Shekau claims responsibility for Unimite blasts. And Army offers 0.5 million naira reward for suicide bombers, for information on suicide bombers. That's the complete rendering. Now, 2 days to exit, Jammeh, that's the outgoing president of the Gambia, declares emergency rule. 2 days to exit, Jammeh declares emergency rule. Of course, you also have a rider to that. And then other headlines there on the front page. Senate fails to stop Abuja airport's closure. That's the second list story there. And then back again to the right-hand column, you have CBN bars banks from Bitcoin and virtual currencies. I take that again, the CBN bars banks from Bitcoin and virtual currencies. And ear implant restores hearing. That's a story dealing with health. And then you have, of course, we have developed the right energy mix for Nigeria. That's according to the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Fashola. Now, those are the front pages from the Guardian newspaper.
All right, Kingston, let's take a look at what the authority is saying. Well, just above the nameplate of start of the stories, the reps begin probe of Rivers election crisis. That story is trending on page 4, and still on page 4 you'll find 1 killed, 4 injured as farmers, headsmen clash in Anambra. No AFCON miss, no AFCON miss again. This is on the sporting world scene anyway, but you find that story on page 46. And leading for the authority is the story of the sad incidents that Kingsley talked about in Borno. Here, the authorities reporting a number as 52 civilians killed, 120 injured in Borno for the military airstrikes on Boko Haram. With 2 riders, Buhari regrets accidental bombing of civilians and negotiation to free remaining Chibok girls on course. This is coming from Information Minister Lai Mohammed. The photograph you have there is that of the Vice President being received by the Pere of Baramatu Kingdom, Oboro Barano II, during the Vice President's fact-finding visit to the Niger Delta. That was on Monday. Reposition Southeast for greatness, Ifeanyi Uba tax Nwodo. You find that story on front page, but continues on second page. Still the story on the Air Force bombing in Borno State. The Daily Trust leads this way. I think the authority has it as 52. Daily Trust is reporting 53 killed as Air Force jet bombs IDP camp in Borno. That story continues on page 5. Bayo.
Yes, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed deep sadness and regret over the accidental bombing of civilian and aid workers in a place called Ran in Kalabaligi local government area. He condoled the families of the dead and also Borno State government. He pledged help to victims of this regrettable operational mistake. Meanwhile, the army says its fighter had actually mistakenly attacked the location and had hit some civilians and some aid workers. The commander of Operation Lafia Dole, Major General Loki Irabo, says that intelligence they received had indicated Boko Haram were gathering at a place around Kalabaligi. Unfortunately, the air component that was directed to address the problem, unfortunately, turned out to have hit some civilians. And meanwhile, a helicopter has already been sent to evacuate some of those that were critically wounded, including some soldiers. Our hearts goes out with the people, particularly the seriously wounded. We hope they will recover very quickly. Jammeh has declared a state of emergency in Gambia. He declared it yesterday and said unwarranted hostile atmosphere has been created in Gambia, threatening the sovereignty, peace, security, and stability of Gambia. Hear him. This has been due to unprecedented and extraordinary amount of foreign interference in the internal affairs of Gambia. He says that the state of emergency will be on for 90 days. According to the Gambian constitution, as a president, he has a prerogative to declare a state of emergency for only 7 days. However, if it is confirmed by the National Assembly, it can extend to 90 days. Already, the majority leader, Honorable Fabakary Jatta, has sent an order paper to the clerk seeking 90 days for state of emergency. 6 other ministers have resigned and fled Gambia. Countdown, tomorrow is his last day in office.
Oh, well, that's, we'll see what unfolds in the Gambia. You're declaring a state of emergency on the eve of your exit. I haven't lost the election last month. But of course, that's a lot of work now for ECOWAS, for the AU, as well as the UN and other well-meaning countries around the world. It's the Gambia, if it descends into anarchy, yes, will meet some humanitarian crisis in the West African sub-region.
Very many citizens are fleeing across.
Absolutely. Ministers, Yahya Jammeh has been abandoned by his ministers, foreign, information, and others. Now let's take a look at the front page of the New Telegraph. Front page of the New Telegraph, just one headline we take from above the nameplate. It says, CBN warns banks against Bitcoin and other virtual currencies. We took that headline earlier from another paper. Details of the story can be found on page 29 of the New Telegraph. Now, also there below the nameplate, we have a window of headlines. Oil pipeline set ablaze in Delta. That's on page 8. And NFF panics over $141,000 rose salary. That's on page 37. Forex. Federal government to unify official and black market rates. That's attributed to Vice President Oshibajo. That's on page 29. Turkish school, again, that's the kicker. Suspects arrested in Creek, sleeping with ladies. That's on page 8 in greater detail. Now, the lead story also is on the incident that occurred yesterday. You have the headline. You also have a photograph of some of the persons who are injured, who are receiving first aid and other treatment, together with the riders. One of the riders that is specific that 2 soldiers lost their lives in that incident. Army will regret action. And of course, Buhari regrets bombing of civilians. Senate probes non-payment of judges' salaries. That's the other headline. That's on page 4 in greater detail. And church fires pastor over involvement in MMM. With the rider anxiety as Ponzi scheme, councils get help. That's on page 4 as well. And there's a health story there that indicates that better HIV treatment is increasing the syphilis rate. Details on page 6.
Okay, Kingsley. On the front page of the Daily Trust, you'll find this graphic representation of what it will cost the federal government to have this rehabilitation of the Abuja airports taken on. 1.1 billion naira. Cost of security, transportation, and others is listed there. It's going to be spent 103 million naira to the Railway Corporation. Road safety is to get some 237 million naira. The police force 358 million naira. 29 million naira is going to civil defense and immigration, and 84 million naira to the transport ministry. But in greater details, you find other use for the money on logistics on page 3. Minister, just below the nameplate for the Daily Trust, you have the story. Minister, 8 million people need help in Northeast.
All right. Bayo, just before you comment, let me take some other headlines from the Leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper says land vehicle import ban. Federal government to save 213 billion naira annually. And House summons service chiefs over Kaduna killings. That's on page 10. 2017, that's the kicker, 7 banks may seek merger over worsening liquidity, and others pursue recapitalization option, and massive job loss imminent. Details can be found on page 5. The Leadership also has a story on the fighter jet that misfired yesterday in Borno, together with Jame declaration of a sort of emergency. It has another headline that says Kogi staff verification. Corruption is fighting back. That's according to the governor of Bello. That's on page 11 in greater detail.
Yes, let me start with the closure of the Abuja airport. The actual cost of repairs for the Abuja airport is put at 5.8 billion. However, the other ancillary cost is what the Daily Trust listed graphically, and that is to come to about 1.1 billion. This scheme was revealed by the Honorable Minister of State for Aviation, Hadi Seriki, when he briefed the Senate yesterday. According to him, the amounts you listed will go to the Railway Corporation, Road Safety, Police, Civil Defense, and also the Transport Ministry. However, the Minister for Power, Works and Housing, Raji Babatunde Fashola, also said that the repair of Kaduna-Abuja Highway will also go 1.05 billion. And it will be completed by February 28. He also indicated that Kaduna was chosen over Mina because the state of the road to Kaduna is better than that of the one to Mina. Julius Berger says it will work assiduously to complete the work in 6 weeks. Talking about the Kaduna crisis, Governor Ahmed El-Rufai has indicated that between 10,000 to 20,000 lives have been lost in various crises in Kaduna since 1980, and the governor lamented that for over 35 years of many crises in Kaduna, nobody has been prosecuted for killings. He was briefing members of the Nigeria Bar Association who visited him on a condolence visit. The governor El-Rufai has vowed to prosecute those found to be behind the recent killings in 3 local governments. They are in Jama'a, Zango Kataf, and Kaura. In Benin, the Traditional Council in Benin has announced the suspension of the Isekure of Benin Chief Nosa Kare Isekure. The Isekure suspended was announced by the briefing addressed by the ESA of Benin. The function of the Isekure is now to be handled by the Iyama of Benin. Isekure is a title that was created as far back as 1280, and his role is a priest that performs spiritual function for the Oba. Meanwhile, this human
that story is on page 18 of the Leadership newspaper. It has a headline about Benin suspends chief priest over traditional stool. His Chief Nusaka is a Hura. He's a chief priest of Benin Kingdom.
Yes. I was trying to draw Blessing's attention. Do you know that a high fiber diet containing something like bread and beans has been found to take care of joint pains like arthritis? And I'm sure this will interest many of our pensioners, because pensioners are in the range of people who are reported to suffer from such arthritis. This was the outcome of a research by a university in Brazil. And they say that if diet of fiber with beans and a whole meal go a long way in addressing the pains of arthritis. Such a diet triggers what they call microorganism in the gut that produces fatty acids, which reduces inflammation.
Bread and beans.
Bread and beans.
Yeah, that's good.
We have in abundance.
So eat yourself out of health and cure arthritis.
I was just wondering what kind of bread? Cassava bread, white bread?
Bread is one of the carbohydrates that is said. Even rice and beans it's very common in Nigeria. Yes. We'll go a long way.
That's great. But as a senior citizen, you also have to worry about flatulence.
Yes.
If you take too much beans. We'd like to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, beans is cheap anyway, and but is it cheap? Well, it's affordable. It's affordable, yes, and it's filling. So.
And you weigh the benefit
or you avoid
of cure of arthritis against flatulence.
All right, let's take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing, of course, again with food. This time, how to add value to our agricultural produce.
Make I come see now how they no go make me president of our club association. In fact, we no go even need to do election sef. Now for just dash me the president when they come see as my level don't change. In fact, I don't get my presidential waka. President.
Promo runs till end of January 2017. Airtel, the smartphone network. Introducing Chief Eric Omofia, President CEO of Erisco Foods Limited.
We are practical manufacturers determined to say the truth in the best interest of our country. And the truth is that all Nigerians can make Nigeria great. I urge you to practicalize your love for this country. Power of Nigerian products from today and build a much brighter future for our country. Your company will promote only other countries' economies, create jobs and wealth, but then while denying yourself and children job opportunities and a good economy by not patronizing your own made in Nigerian products. Like Erisco, Mexico, and Mexico tomato paste and other range of Erisco foods products. Do the right thing. Buy made in Nigeria today, you will never regret it. Let us all contribute to the Nigerian's economy and support President Buhari's economic policy so that Nigeria can be sweet for all of us. Thank you and God bless you.
Buy your own products. Buy made in Nigeria like Erisco, Richiko, and Najiko range of products. Proudly made in Nigeria by Erisco Foods Limited, a member of Erisco Bumpet Group.
Does your antiseptic liquid kill the germs that cause flu, diarrhea, typhoid? Dettol does. Dettol provides 10 times more protection versus leading competition. So why take a risk with your loved ones?
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, showing live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. Now, as a prompt for our discussion this morning, taking a look at value addition to agriculture. more has been done and more is still required as we take a look at value-added agriculture as the way the globe has gone and the way to go around for other countries that have taken this very seriously. They have not only created jobs for their people, but conserve foreign exchange and as well as earn money in their own defense means. In this background report put together by Ngozi Chude, will let us more into the discussion.
For Nigeria, agriculture contributes about 60% of its gross domestic product and over 90% of employment, making it the highest employer of labor. Across board, there is a consensus that this is the time to leverage on the potential of the agricultural sector and diversify the economy, thereby placing the nation on the path of sustainable growth and development. But experts are quick to add that one formidable ingredient in this direction is maximizing the agro-allied value chain, or perhaps what professionals call value-added agriculture. In broader terms, this is to economically add value to a product by changing its current place, time, and from one set of characteristics to other characteristics that are more preferred in a place. A typical example is milling wheat into flour for production of bread, tomatoes into tomato paste, rice into oatmeal, and cassava into gari and bread. The list goes on. In fact, in analyzing the viability of value-added agriculture initiative, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, in 2015 said the agricultural product must meet one of the following 5 value-added methodologies. This includes change in physical state, production that enhances the values of the agricultural commodity, and physically segregated in a manner that results in the enhancement of the value of the agricultural commodity. Back in Nigeria, this value-added agriculture is a transformation the Bank of Industry believes is premised on an input, output, and outcome approach. The input, they say, would be through the financing of outgrowers and wearers that would protect major processors. The output is job creation and market for the primary produce, while the outcome is targeted at wealth creation, poverty alleviation, value addition to primary source, utilization of local raw materials, and increasing contribution of agriculture to GDP. However, to engender maximum impact, they are of the opinion that 5 focus areas are essential. This includes cassava, cotton, rice, tomato, palm oil, and animal production. At this point, one cannot overemphasize the harm the overdependence of oil has done to the nation's economy, as Nigeria, with its capacity of 84 million hectares of arable land, cultivates only 40% of it and spending an average of $11 billion annually on importing wheat, rice, sugar, and fish alone. Fortunately, with government's renewed vigor towards resuscitating the agricultural sector, change might just be on the way, but experts are only optimistic if the value-added agriculture can harness these 5 focus areas into value chain for export. Apart from this, one critical aspect that remains vital is transforming Nigeria's industrial sector, which experts identify in the following: creating an enabling environment, providing technical assistance, commercialize research findings, shift from traditional technologies to modern technologies, promote and facilitate public-private partnership, among others. What are the steps taken in this direction? Is Nigeria ready for value-added agriculture? What is the next step to making the agricultural sector like that of other climes? This will be our focus today on Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much there, Ngozi Chude, for that very elaborate background report on value addition to agricultural produce in Nigeria. Now we have joining us in the studios this morning the Group Vice President of Dangote Industries, that's Alhaji Sani Dangote. Alhaji Sani Dangote, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Good morning, and I'm pleased to be with you this morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, so let's back up a bit and then take a look at where we are coming from. In the past, we could celebrate the fact that, we had the groundnut pyramids in Kano, but some economic experts have indicated that indeed that was a disservice to us in the sense that we ought to have added more value to the sacks of groundnuts that were stacking up into pyramids in Kano. Groundnuts, cultivated in different parts of the north. But unfortunately, we lost the pyramids. The same thing, we lost rubber production, we lost palm oil production, lost sugar, and so on and so forth. The various items that have been listed by either our correspondent or by my colleague Blessing and I spoke to at the beginning of this program. Here we are. Our food import bill is huge. And everybody's saying, listen, we can't cultivate our land, add value to what we cultivate, save forex, earn money, create jobs. Is this an easy way to proceed?
Well, as you said, you're fighting back to the pyramids period. Back then, I mean, even though I was very young, and I could remember vividly that there were so many oil mills in Kano that I know, in Gusau, in part of Gombe, because they were actually using that stockpile of groundnuts to produce a lot of groundnut oil. And there were huge industries. At least I know about 3 or 4 of such massive companies still exist, although they are virtually closed. But there were so many other ones that were small sizes and so on that were in those days booming very well. Also using cotton seed and groundnut seed, to produce oil. But the major problem is the neglect of the sector. When government did not pay attention to the sector and made things cheaper to import, actually made Nigerian goods to be more expensive and quality-wise also inferior, because there was no money making in the business, so they neglected that sector, and the sector completely declined and to extinction. The same thing in cotton. When there were so many textiles in this country, textile industry was the second largest employer apart from government. I remember even in the late 90s, we still had many textile operating, over 130 different textile mills. Today, virtually you cannot talk about 2 textile factories in the whole country operating, all because of neglect, and government felt, well, we have enough dollars, we can afford a lower exchange rate, why not allow people to trade, to import, and a lot of smuggling also contributed. So that's not really the way to go. And I believe the way to go is government must see the balance. If we are looking for a cheap dollar, then we're looking for import-dependent economy. If we are looking at a good, reasonable exchange rate, which will stimulate local productivity, that is the way to go, whereby we can give a better value and we can focus our energy and our money towards incentivizing local added value industries. If you look at it, the same is going to the cocoa. There were Idare cocoa processing, there one in Ikeja, cocoa industries in Ikeja, and a few other ones that were doing very well in the 80s and up to early 90s. Today they are gone. The recent one, there's also Multitrex, is already in a mess because of all this neglect from the government. If government had focused the attention to added value, definitely these industries were doing very well in the past. Why are they not doing so? It's actually because government attention was more about providing dollars at a cheaper rate, providing dollars for import substitution, for import into the country. So if we are talking about value addition, there's nothing better than that. Because if you are talking to us, everybody now is saying, oh, let's go to agriculture, let's go to agriculture. Yes, it's good to incentivize local productivity. But if you don't add value, there's limited value you can give to the farmer or to the producer. Because if you don't add value, you only trade in the grains as they are. There's very little margin there that you can sustain both the chain. But if once you can add value, it means you can actually transfer more money to the producer, and the producer will make money. Then you have money to invest in the primary production. And so the way to go about it is really to look at the value all across.
All right, Alhaji Dangote, let's put some key areas in perspective. You've talked about now government is seeing the need. Of course, over the different administrations, they actually saw the need to put agriculture back to its own proper place after discovering oil. Now, there are critical areas, even in value chain, value addition chain. What exactly are those areas that is not making us to see this appreciable need to actually put this in right perspective? What exactly are those areas that needs to be touched in adding value most people are going to the farm now.
Yes.
Exactly. What do we need to do differently?
Right now, government attention, and especially the Ministry of Industry, is to focus on the low-hanging fruit. Those agro industries that had been already existing in the past, probably have closed down due to financial issues, financial problems, to go back and look at them because they are ready to be injected with funds or activated or put back to operations so that they can key in with what is already going on right now. You know, the whole new interest, the whole new trend of going back to agriculture. Once we continue now going into this production, we're going to look at what is the added value so that we don't push so much of local primary production and we end up starting having surpluses and where the value addition is not taking place. And then you can begin to have a reverse because prices will start to decline to the level where it's below cost, and then people will start getting out of the business. Then it will be an issue to bring them back again. Okay. So right now, look at these industries and come up with some stimulus plan where you can get these industries back into the operations, whether it is in the cocoa sector, whether it is the food ingredients like those who can process maize, millets, and sorghum, those who can process cassava into starch and others. See how we can inject more stimulus plan in the agro-food industries to start off with. Then other value addition will come through. So, and I know there are a couple of them that are already down due to the past neglect. And it's easier than closing them down, putting them under restriction.
You're on the field, I'd like to say. So let's have a kind of a short list of some of those areas that Nigerian can have it, or where we have our comparative advantage. Yeah. Let's take a look at, from the north to the south, there must be particular crops, produce that will actually help each of those regions.
Immediately in the north, we can look at the groundnut oil mills. There are many of them that have closed down. In the textile sector, there are many ginneries that can process cotton gin, and today, even if the textile mills are not ready, they can actually export the cotton lint. And then also the seed can be turned into oil seeds. The cake can go into the animal feed, which is a big challenge today. The same thing with the granules that can be processed today. There are so many of them that are currently closed down in the north due to a lot of so many other problems. In coming down to south, a lot of these cocoa industries are there. They can actually get them back on the feet, and they can get them going immediately. Cocoa is still producing, but as well, the production has declined to some quantity, but they can still process whatever is coming up and then go back to inject more funds into the primary production and get this going. In the palm oil, also in the south, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, Edo, and other states, there are small cottage industries that can be assisted to the local farmers. Once we can bring those clusters of local farmers, provide them with the enabling capacity to mill their own bunches of oil, palm oil fruits, definitely we can add more into the market and then incentivize their primary production. Today we have only two major palm oil plantations, that is Okumo and Presco. But there are so many, the whole of the nation, there are so many industries, small cottage ones that can be revived and get back to business. And this will help the uptake to the small farmer groups and be able to add value and pay them much better value, and they will include their own uptake from these farmers, increase the productivity and supply into the market.
All right. Well, Alaji Sani Dangote, thanks a lot for the perspective that you have introduced into this conversation. But as you are well aware, oftentimes we have buzz phrases, stock phrases in this country, value addition, value addition. Ultimately, to fast-track or accelerate value addition in the agri sector will involve business and investment decisions. Yes. Now, for purposes of value addition, such as we are discussing, is this a matter solely for big business or a matter also for the cottage industries? And therefore, if it is big business, what is the big business looking at? If it is a cottage business, what is the cottage business looking at as incentives to get into the value chain process?
Yes, it's both. The big and the medium and or three, I can say the small ones. The small ones, for example, in the oil processing, there are small mills that within 50 million naira and below, small farmer groups that can come together, put one, and they can process 2 tons, 5 tons an hour, or even a day. And that's good for them. It reduces the tedious labor they have to put in and still get a very low output and very low quality due to lack of mechanization or modernizing their process. The medium one, you can get between 100 million to 500 million, you can still get such. And the large ones, into billions. And that can be a larger size where you buy so much from. But this Bank of Industry is there. Bank of Agriculture is there. They are capitalizing it now. And Central Bank is there to come up with some policy, fiscal policy, that can incentivize two of these banks to fund such agro-processing. And also in the large scale, bringing the cost of this lending below 5%. Because we are talking about developing this industry. Once we keep saying, no, we don't have money at that rate, there has to be a development fund that will go below 5% and for such industry. And for a longer period of time, we should look at it that, we just don't want to make up the money in 2-3 years. We should incentivize this area and they can invest. And once they can invest in there, we give them stimulus and making sure that the industry is thriving, because it will stimulate also local production of the raw material, employment is there, other added services are coming, other chain value additions and job employment is there. So the value is not looking at only how much we get from the interest we give them, the industry, but what other additional value they can create for the economy. And that, I believe, should be the way to look at it, to incentivize that sector and focus on that. That's why I gave the reference to the Minister of Trade and Industry. They should stay focused in this sector, rather than looking at the total industry-wide. There should be a more purpose-driven attention to the local added value addition industries that are immediate go, which is the hanging fruits, that we can immediately today get them running, tomorrow they are buying local raw material. And any raw material you look at, whatever the value is today at 1,000 naira, for example, if you transform it into some value, into some addition, definitely it will probably go twice the fold or more in value, which means you can definitely pay more to get the value you're looking at.
Let's still pursue the business angle. Your explanation to some of our viewers,
yes,
it's very well taken, obviously. I'm sure we'll get reaction from them in the course of this conversation. But as you also may have encountered in the media, there are frustrations expressed by potential investors, yes, whether at the lower end of value addition, the middle, or at the upper end where the sums will run into billions. If some person will wonder, for instance, why is it so easy for Dangote, to swing from, crude refinery, as is the case now, to agro-allied industries and so on and so forth, and they themselves are struggling to raise, the little capital that they don't have access to. Yeah. So how, if you say cooperatives, when people get together, does our business attitude, I want to be a sole proprietor, does our business attitude also impede our capacity to accelerate our business ideas through attracting...
I think, that's the perception people have, that it's very easy for Dangote to move from this side to the other side. It's actually extremely difficult. Convincing the public sector, the government, sometimes, the bureaucratic system, to understand the benefit of some of the activities even Dangote is engaging in, it's been a difficult one. But maybe because of the size of the businesses that Dangote does, it seems that easy. But deeper in, if you go into the headache everyone goes through to get to that level, it's not easy. And that's why for smaller companies, they seem like an impossibility to move in there. The biggest impediment is the bureaucracy of government and the lack of consistency on their policies. Anyone that comes with a bag as a trader can sweeten their mind to say, why don't you allow me, there's going to be a shortage of this product, there's going to be a shortage of this product, let me go and import, and then you will not suffer a scarcity. That is the thing that they always use to divert government attention. But the government needs to understand that to get that value, we need to go through a certain pain, then to break the ice and be able to now bring about good productivity. So the major issue is about the government and public side. That's the government, sitting down and understanding the real need of private sector and looking at it with a focused attention and be proactive. Because the major issue is the government is in the past regimes, and we hope this government that is moving towards this direction will not follow this the way of the past. That means government, you had, as a private sector, you had to go in and wake them up and push them to understand where you're going. They expect you, private sector, to come to them and say, these are my problems. Instead of them working with you hand in hand as a team and be able to be proactive before the challenge comes to the private sector where they go into billions of losses, government is already ahead thinking, or engaging them when they can see the sign ahead that there are hard times or issues.
Is there a capacity challenge in the public service?
Well, obviously, I think there's such capacity because they seem not to understand how the private sector works. That's the biggest problem. They think that, oh, we are big guys here. When you have a problem, come and tell us. Okay. When you tell us, we'll go back to the drawing board and bring all kinds of stakeholders and review. By the time they come back with a review, you are dead.
All right, Alhaji Sani Dangote will take on some other areas. So, of course, remember that the last administration under the NTA, of course, ATA, had some projects listed, and Dangote was among. So we'll find out what happened to that proposition when we turn from this break. This is Good Morning Nigeria. A break beckons at this point. We'll be right back to take a look at accelerating value addition to agriculture.
Only you blind, you deaf, dumb, you even mental.
Brother mi, má dá lóhùn. Olórí burúkú ló pọ̀jù nínú wọn.
Oh, brother, you go slap me now.
Expect the cops though. Who now?
See Farugi. Brother Michi.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Mokoye, Yomi Fash Lanso, Stephen Odingbe.
I just realized I ran out of fuel and I forgot my ATM and wallet at home. Sir, please could you have anything?
You got transport around those ways. Are you going to Igwanda? Mon Dieu. You have eyes to look at Kebe, Abi. So shall it be permanent in your life.
Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times.
I have catch a big liar in our family.
And who could that be?
You see, a baby papa, Abi, is a baby mama, Abi, a baby what?
Over and out. Welcome to the new speed of life.
As I recharge so, I know say I must win the Enter Red Hot promo. Hey, by the time the 10 million naira enter my hand, I go just give my landlord quick notice. Yes, and if he proves stubbornness, I go just buy a house, buy her in family, join self. Enter Red Hot promo. I sure pass.
Promo runs till end of January 2017. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Do you know that importing consumables and domestic products kill local manufacturing and negatively affect the growth of the economy? That some imported products are dangerous to your health? That building factories can generate massive employment and grow the economy? Buying locally made products and services means investing back in the economy. Thousands of Nigerians are innovative and can take Nigeria to the next level. Growing the economy starts with you and I. Raise the standard. Grow the economy. Buy made in Nigeria.
Hi guys, look how my baby Jamil has grown. And as they grow, there's a worry we all share, skin rash. Some use lotions or petroleum jelly, but I found what works for Jamil is Nigerian Pampers. It has built-in lotion to help protect his delicate skin and keep him dry. See you in the morning, Jam Jam. Good morning, happy Jam Jam. Dry and soft and no sign of a rash. Join many other moms and try Nigerian Pampers with lotion. Let's beat the rash.
All right, you're welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria. But if you just joined us, that's the program you're watching, and it's live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As you can see from our screen, we are discussing how to accelerate value addition to agricultural produce in the country. We still have with us here in the studios Vice President of Dangote Industries, that's Alhaji Sani Dangote. But we're being joined now by another guest. This time he's the Deputy Group Deputy Managing Director of Kawaram Shonrai Group, Mr. Victor Burajola. Mr. Burajola, a pleasure to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right. Now, just before you came in, we had, touched on some aspects of value addition in the agricultural sector. Part of what we'll be taking a look at now in this segment would be to say, from your perspective, value
group. At one time, we had 12,000 extension farmers in Yola and in that area when cotton was going on. This, we need to do. But after doing that, we need also to help them so that they get more value for what they are producing. I'll give a typical example that almost ruined the textile industry. They were growing cotton when the textile industry was booming. And you know what? Instead of packing this cotton in jute bags, they were packing this cotton in polypropylene bags. And once you do that with cotton, it mixes with the fiber of the polypropylene bags. And when you bring it into the textile factory, you want to start to spin. It creates problem. And what happened? Nigerian cotton was downgraded as being of low quality. So these are the things that we also have to do. I don't know if you have touched on this. Some years ago, in this country, we scrapped commodity boards. And having done that, the quality of all our commodities crashed. In the Republic of Benin here, the commodity board was set up in 1864, thereabout. Today, it's still there. And they still prop it up. We scrapped our own. The products quality dropped, everything dropped. And then after about 10 years, the government reinstated commodity boards. But yesterday, because I was coming here, I checked up. They are not funded. They're only paying salary, and the workers are just there. Now, if this foundation is not there,
could actually be sourced from agricultural produce.
Now, let me start from where you just stopped. One basic problem we have in this country is competing interest. The government wants to put a policy in place. You'll find that those who are not likely to benefit from that policy go after the policy and start attacking it because of their own benefit. So they will tell you there's going to be a shortfall in this product we can import. And then there's a diversion. And you know the appetite of the Nigerian. When you import, it's imported ones that they want. That is one basic problem. But for the ones that are produced here, if we focus on it, and like I said, teach them the preservation, teach them how to clean it, teach them how to package it, they will add value. The lifespan of the products will be longer. We need to do this, and I tell you, it is basically education. Look at the example I gave about cotton. If the cotton farmer knew that if he packs his cotton in jute bag, it will last, and it will not be contaminated. But the jute bag factory in Jos was closed down because the polypropylene bags were cheaper and they were all over the place.
That's right. So how do they get involved at that level? Okay. Every person doesn't have to be a big yes, whether the farmers or the next level.
Right. Agreeing to most of what Mr. Victor said, when you look at the small farmers, when you look at the farmers that are working on subsistence farming, from Nigerian Agribusiness Group, which I'm the president, our view is to say, look, for Nigeria to move into real agricultural economic development and be self-reliant on agricultural products, we need to also change the fundamentals of how we do agriculture today. I saw some of the clip you showed. Everything farmers are doing is wrong, is the primitive way of doing business in the 50s and 40s. We are still doing it in 2017. There's no way we can get that productivity out. There's no way we can get that value. So our own way is saying to the government and to everybody, the all stakeholders, that we must consciously come and say what we are doing will not take us to the promised land. We need to now change the fundamentals, which means bring all the small farmer holders into clusters. He's talking about educating them, but you can't educate millions of farmers individually. So we bring them into clusters where every farmer that has less than 100 hectares on his own must be encouraged to come into a cluster of co-ops. Through that co-ops, we can organize for them the education, the transfer of knowledge. We can mechanize their farmland because they are now in a cluster. We can bring about better inputs. There's no talk about subsidy now. We're not talking about even government providing any subsidy. Once you can get them into clusters of, say, 1,000 hectares and above, they have the volume, the content to determine what value they want to pay for their product and what quality they are looking for. You're giving them extension services. You're giving them a funding from Bank of Agriculture or Bank of Industry. You minimize their risk of doing business. Now they can easily access fund because they are in a cluster. Then you can now be able to bring research institutions on all these government almost dead institutions that have been there in the 70s or 60s. Now they can come back. All the College of Education can engage into these clusters of farmers. Now you can be able to now anchor with them an uptake arrangement. Industries that are big size, that are not having that farm size, can anchor into these clusters of farmers, have an agreed uptake of their production. Even those farmers that probably can afford it can have a small cottage machineries to process what they harvest, be it rice, be it sorghum, be it corn, maize, be it millet or cassava. And from the public side, the government needs to focus its policy towards consistency and focus on agri-value addition. No matter what the value of dollar becomes, even if tomorrow they want to appreciate it to 1-to-1, for example, I'm just saying that government should never attempt to appreciate it that much. They should find an equilibrium level where the rate of exchange incentivizes local productivity and also allows certain imports to be affordable. We should not worry so much about what is the rate of exchange, whether it is 300 or 400. It should just be available and reliable and consistent. That's what we should look for. Once we have, even if it is 400, but you can be sure there has to be a price mechanism where government guarantees a certain price. Now, its government may not be the main uptaker, but they set the rules, and then private partnership and public partnership will come in and be the stabilizing marketing companies, like we talk about the commodity exchange. But this time, it will not be 100% government. It will be managed on behalf of government by private sector with a guaranteed price mechanism and an upper price mechanism, which means a farmer is guaranteed a minimum of, say, 20% income for whatever is your cost. And this price is determined season after season. And at the same time, there will be a capping price that it should not exceed a certain value. At that value, government will allow those marketing companies to inject back to the market. Plus,
what you were describing, Alhaji Sunday Dangote, I thought that there was some semblance of movement in this direction. We're talking about insurance for the agri sector, the move towards establishing a commodity exchange, reviving the commodity boards, and so on and so forth. From your experience on the field, what has happened to these ideas? Well, have they coalesced into?
See, they talk about the agri insurance. Right now, I think in NAIC, there's only Nigerian agricultural insurance company that is the monopoly on that. We are advocating that it should not be only one insurance company. They should allow other insurance companies to participate into this agri insurance. Now, that's fine. Second issue about commodity exchange, I believe it's a good idea, but we are not yet there. Because when you want to play a commodity exchange, you must have the physicals available. You must be able to play in the game whereby you must either deliver in physical terms or pay the difference. And people can trade, but if we are looking only to the aspect of trading on the stock, what we are going to do, we're going to create huge prices escalation. And people will now be, speculators. Now you buy stock which you cannot even see with your eyes, and then you price it today, you sell it just to make the money. Then we go into another era like this balloon and bust, and the whole sector will die. The best thing for us now is to work on the physicals, which means you actually have the grains you buy and store for food security, for price stabilization, and for industrial growth. And you intervene when prices reach to the top bracket price. And then those private companies are not going to get any money from government. They will charge 5% or 10% management fee for those grains. When they are asked to intervene to bring back the produce, they bring it back at cost they buy, plus their 5% margin, and they stabilize the price. And the priority will be given to the industrial sector first.
What is frustrating this from proceeding? That's Mr. Victor Jola again.
Let me say, first, I want to take us back. I remember when I was in secondary school, these are Greek officers that were going from village to village using motorcycle. I just recall what they were doing. Were going to the farmers and telling them what to do with their products, even how to harvest. I got to know that because I worked in the field when I was working with Shell. And some of their Greek officers were also taken up by Shell because they were dealing with farmers. I don't know why we scrapped that. They're no longer around because most of what Alhaji is saying about, these are business of the Ministry of Agric, Federal, and the state. That way, it was a win-win situation. Right?
Yes.
But what do we do today? Let me say, anyone who wants to introduce a change, most of the time is on his own. Those who are benefited from the old order will oppose it. Those who are not sure, they will sit on the fence. How is it going? That's the problem we're facing. Once you say you want to introduce anything, those who are benefited the antenna, and they will throw spanner in the works.
I think,
yes.
If I may comment, I mean, the direct word is to say, really, the government.
Yeah.
We are pleased that with this administration, they are listening and they are seriously interested to get this out of the way. But we are not yet there. The issue is about the public, the civil servant or the ministry to understand that it is their job to focus on local productivity and adding value and encouraging local production and getting the employment. Once they begin to think that if I want to talk to a local producer, I must bring the importer to the table, you are bringing two different people on the table. And that's their mindset. If you now go to them, for example, you talk about tomato. We are the biggest processor of tomato. I have a factory with 1,200 tons. It can process every single day an equivalent, just to give you the size, of 40 trailers of tomato every single day. It can get over 15,000 farmers engaged throughout there. That's only one factory. We have a plan for expansion. He has another one in Kaduna, Kuala, and the other one in Gombe or border with Borno. There are so many other ones. Even today I read Sokoto State wants to set up only 95 million small cottage industry for the tomato process. There are millions or hundred thousands of tons that are wasted every single season. Why government is taking government so long to come with a policy that will encourage investment? Then the Ministry of Trade will tell you, I have to bring all stakeholders, the importers, the processor, and whatever, all of you sit and let's talk. Only of this recent government we've been able to convince them that, look, you cannot bring an importer who is interested to import and make his money.
Who's a trader?
Who's a trader with somebody who's investing billions, and they've listened to us now to say, okay, we understand where the pain is coming from.
All right.
That will continue.
Yes, we'll continue on those areas of constraints we're still experiencing adding value once we return. We'll also take a look at aspects of education, like Mr. Brajulu pointed out. Collaboration between research institutes and what needs to be done. Technology of the 21st century addressing agriculture, but that will be once we're done with these tweets that have come in response to our discussion. From Festus Akimboyera, we have adding value to our agri-product is a task that must be done to create jobs, generate billions of dollars, and strengthen our naira.
Yeah, this one is from Change to Progress, and it tweets, value addition in the agri sector is critical for diversification. Hopefully, the 500 billion naira recapitalization of BOA, which stands for Bank of Agriculture, will help the cottage companies.
From Sani Michael Momakoji, it says the quantum amount of cashew nuts exported out of this country is overwhelming. Can't we add values here?
Suleiman Sanusi said we shouldn't neglect the importance of cash crops while discussing value addition, because those, that's to say cash crops, are the produce that need to be prioritized.
And from my
the research institutes are in this country. The various universities have them. The International Institute of Tropical Agriculture is in this country. Go to Ibadan, see their facility. They do research and so on and so forth.
Okay, let me quote, well, one of them, let's take a look at, for FIRO, of course, is the Federal Industrial Research Institute at Oshodi, that has developed over 250 technologies on various agro-commodities in the country, processing them to shelf-stable products for commercialization. It would appear people are shying away from actually approaching them for whatever the reasons are.
Let me advise FIRO, you don't make a product or you invent something and you put it in the shelf. You label it, you said I've done it. You must go out to market it. You must go out to talk to those who are going to benefit from it. Isn't it? They can't just do that and leave it there. You see, like he is in business, I am in business. I am busy with what I have to do. If you have an addition, you come to me, I will listen. Unless you want the companies to set up their own research or department that will liaison with research institutes. For God's sake, you have a product, sell it.
Well, if I may come in.
Yes, please.
Going back to this same genesis of why these industries and the whole sector collapsed is what I believe also contributed to why FIRO and Co. will not get patronage. Because when there is no money making in this whole agri value chain, who will go out looking for an advancement and enhancement of their value? Even the big players who are just managing in the industry, they're going through turbulent times. So, but now that the focus is coming into agriculture, we're talking about these clusters of farmers coming together. That's why FIRO can start to go out and now, approach these clusters of small farmers and introduce their invention or new ideas of enhancing the value through some mechanical process and approach. To the big companies, mostly they will look at a standardized industrial process that is known and proven over many decades. They will not go and invest money in the small cottage process equipment like FIRO will do, but they can learn through that and see how they can improve in one way or another. In the Research Institute for Seedling and so on, definitely it's only when we bring out these farmers that are the larger number of the sector into clusters that we can really get all those research institutions to key into them. Government is not spending money on them because of the total neglect in the past of all this sector. But if we begin to get, like we believe, is the only way to move forward, is bringing them in clusters. There's no country that has achieved industrial development in the agriculture sector that has not brought about their small farmers into clusters or co-ops. Nobody can allow millions of farmers in their single units and believe that they will get any value. Even those days when they had marketing boards in the 60s, 70s, farmers worked as a team. They never were on a single level as they are now.
I just wonder, gentlemen, we're discussing value addition, agricultural production, and so on and so forth. There are some commentators who look at our food and beverage industry, for instance, and then ask the question, say some of the biggest companies you have in this country, how much local ingredients go into what they produce?
Yes.
And why is it that these companies do not then patronize our research industries, which come up with their findings, either pre-existing or new findings, that will say, look, you can actually source this ingredient locally. Then you go back again to the farmers, you go back to those who would add value, and so on and so forth. Are we not having this gap? The commonest example you would get, I mean, if you visited Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, you will see the products, Coca-Cola products from different parts of the world, each of them tasting differently. If you have the stomach,
because they are using local content.
Local content. But us, every time concentrate.
Let me say one thing, right? Yes. It all boils down to the government policy and government focus. If governments of today that are looking forward to agriculture comes up and say, this is our blueprint for local content, and how we will ensure that we remain focused and the government policy remain consistent, definitely you will look at backward integration. For example, we have a plantation in Cross River where we're putting a lot of pineapples, we're putting bananas, we're putting this. Hopefully, this first quarter we're going to start processing our pineapples. But before the devaluation and so on, it made it much, much cheaper to import concentrates, and the duty for products that are imported was low. So obviously, the incentive for you to invest in that sector is not there. The same thing goes for sugarcane. The same thing goes for wheat. The same thing goes for rice. The same thing goes for all this added value. Why is it today that so many industries are coming up for rice mills? Why is it today there's so many interest to buy sorghum blended with the wheat and now make flour? Why is it there's so much interest now on cassava to make starch and other products? Because the rate of exchange is ideal. It discourages the import. The dollar is not available. So what we are saying that even if dollar becomes available, government should deny such dollars towards goods that can be produced locally, or put some tariff where it discourages import against the local content and allow the local industry to grow. And we may suffer a price hike in the interim, but eventually, after a year or two, price will begin to stabilize and become down. And by then we'll gain our own self-reliance on our own local productivity. So what you said is really that missing gap is government alignment with the private sector. And like I said earlier, government needs to be more proactive, looking ahead and say, well, I need to develop this sector. I need to grow this sector by a certain level. I need to highlight certain product. I said this and this product must be 100% localized, or 50% or more, and gradually drive the private sector towards that goal by giving them the policy guidelines, the framework, and ensuring that they are consistent on that policy and making sure that there's no diversion, and do not listen to importers who will come and swap their ideas, say their shortage, this price, this, and before you know, they come with all kinds of excuses.
Dismantling existing policies.
WTO and all these kind of excuses. Even WTO allows you to enhance certain area with your local capacity. It doesn't say 100% open up to your death. It allows you to grow your local capacity. So
Mr. Guajima, let's get your take on this.
For the food, beverage, and tobacco industry, I'm aware, but I don't know to the extent that Cadbury, Nestle have some relationship with these cocoa companies, these companies that buy cocoa and so on for processing. You know, they use some of the local content. For us, it should be a matter of policy. We have been talking about local content in the oil industry, isn't it?
That's correct.
It's still on the drawing board. The oil industry has been with us for years. We're still talking of local content. It's more of government policy.
Get to interact with government. From your experience, where do you find the gap in the public sector in not being able to establish these enduring linkages with the private sector and then tailor policies that will be beneficial ultimately to the domestic economy?
It's simple. Once you don't have an alignment on ideas, on policy, on where to go. Private sector is talking about this sector, government sector or public sector is saying, well, we are listening to you, but they are not acting. You need the two partners to work together to make it a success. So private sector to some extent gets so frustrated, and everybody is on his own. I've asked this question many times when we come to the Nigerian Economic Summit, that what is the benefit of doing this talk? Every year we've been talking. Same government official comes in and sits with you. Same government official goes back after talking, does the whole other things. I know in the past regime, how many times would the government come in and sit in? Now this regime have done it, I think, twice now. And first, I can't remember, but I know that the last one we had, the vice president was there, I believe so many other ministers. But there was no blueprint to say today, tomorrow, these are every day's line of achievement that we need to measure, so that before we come back to the next year, we must give account of what we achieved from this summit to the next. Otherwise, there's no need to do another summit, because your other partner is unwilling. You, the private sector, you are looked as selfish, because from public sector, they look at the private sector as you are all bunch of people who are looking at your own selfish interests. We are here looking for we are looking for the unknown people, or people who have no face, to say, oh, we are looking at the public interest. Who are the public interests? The private businesses that are there. If the private businesses' ideas are not, tell it to their faces that we are not going to do this. This is what we are going to do. But who is going to execute it? It's still the private sector.
Okay, gentlemen, let's take a look at this area. One of the tweets actually talked about issue of cashew been taking out more than necessary, where we could have added much value to it. Now, before the break, when we brought in Mr. Eberajolo, I was going to pose a question. The last administration under ATA had proposed to establish 14 staple crop processing sites, and Dangote, as well as some other companies, were spread across the different areas of the company. Now, this project was to add value, like we said, to increase earnings from them. Could you tell us what happened to such project? Because if such had been continued, I'm sure we have a lot to...
you're actually right. I was...
that's one collaboration.
I say, okay, the area they earmarked for such staple crop, there's no any industry, nothing. So our industry will now co-opt it as, okay, within the catchment area, you're also adopted as staple crop. Now, what benefit is? We're still faced with low import duty on the same product we can. Just recently, the Minister of Finance even went and reduced the duty of imported tomato paste, concentrate, from 10% to 5%. The same minister was the same talking with us for the last 1 year, talking about how do we incentivize local productivity. So then what do you talk about? Although, thank God that the presidency has taken charge of the issue, have brought all the ministry involved, Ministry of Trade, and again, and talked to them, and Ministry of Agriculture. They are reviewing that these certain things must be looked into, and hopefully they are going to come with a very good way of addressing not only tomato, all other areas of agri inputs. But going back to cashew, cashew, yes, I know cashew is something that we can encourage local added value. Now, we look at the price people pay for the whole cashew on process and the price they could pay for the additional value. The most important thing is, like I said, the ministry and the government should come with some incentive. If they were to give some kind of tariff or some kind of political policy to say, if you export raw cashew, you pay a certain tax. But if you process it, you can even get an incentive. Or you get your mechanization, your industry, you can access Bank of Agriculture or Bank of Industry, you can get those machineries at a cheaper rate, you can get some kind of special grant, because it costs money to start such industry. And because you are not sure what policy will be, you cannot start as a pilot one and be the scapegoat. So that is really what is driving away people from cashew.
But someone has to bail the cat.
But the government has to come with a bridge that I'm going to lessen your burden by giving you incentivized funding to set up your mini industry. We're going to now discourage export of the raw cashew by saying if you export it in raw, we'll probably pay, you charge a certain value, which you can use to develop the sector. Same as cocoa beans. Why should somebody set up a cocoa processing mill or factory like cocoa industry and so on, and somebody easily come with his dollar and buy the raw cocoa and take it out with nothing? And then you're asking this guy,
the previous Minister of Finance, I suggested that customs, they retain 7% of whatever revenue they collect. I said, let those of us carrying these certificates pay customs the 7%, if that is their problem, and let us use these certificates to clear our goods. None. So there are people who have invested and they have certificates that are almost worthless with them. They can't trade it.
Well, gentlemen, we're pressed for time now. This has been a very, I believe, interesting conversation. We've talked essentially about government. At the upper levels of policy making, you have the Bank of Agriculture, and so on and so forth. But people always also ask the question, what are the state governments doing? Mr. Eberajolo, you were talking earlier about the motorcyclists, the extension workers who were going from village to village and meeting farmers. What has been your experience dealing with the state ministries of agriculture? Some persons believe that they're virtually non-existent. What can be done to get them into the mix of what we've been discussing? Let's begin with.
Some of the states actually are very determined to ensure that they get their farmers. But like I said, it's the roots of it. First of all, you need to look at the national policy. It's what will drive the whole change we talk about. Like I said, thank God that this government is now looking at how do we bring about change. The ministry, state governments of in the nation, that's the Ministry of Agriculture, their state ministry, their some of them that are determined to see how can they come closer to the farmers. But if there is no value, if there is no money in there, everything dies off. The issue is about the bringing in the extension service workers, like he's talking about. They are bringing in education to the farmers. They're bringing in some fertilizer. All these things they are bringing in really will not bring in the needed stimulus.
Thanks a lot for your insights.
Thank you very much.